Procrastination is nobody's friend when it comes to audits. You should always be audit ready. If a propensity to wait until the last minute to do things is our strategy with audits, there's going to be a bow wave of work to get ready for one, and it will cause some major aggravation. It doesn't have to be that way. If, as we are going along daily, we follow our procedures, perform our work consistently, and ensure the quality evidence packages are uploaded to our archive system, our audit preparation will be so much more efficient. If you've been through an audit, you know it can be a stressful event. Our goal today is to help guide you through the experience.
I've been in regulatory compliance in some capacity my entire career, and I've been audited by a lot of different folks. The ones that stand out the most painful audits I've ever been involved in were the IRS. Any of you guys ever been audited by the IRS? I'm guessing it wasn't a very pleasant experience. And as I sat back and reflect on it, I come to realize that one of the reasons why that didn't go well is because me and the auditor wanted completely different things. He wanted all my money and I wanted to keep my money. So at the end of the day, the worst or best that's going to happen is we're kind of both mildly aggravated at the other one because we neither one got really what we wanted. Okay, so let's think about reliability for just a minute. I'm guessing that none of you drive to work in the morning thinking about, I'm going to go misset that relay, or I'm going to go stroke a valve into the wrong position, and I'm going to see if I can do something to trip this plant offline so I can black out the hospital down the street. That's not our mindset when we go to work. Our mindset is we want that plant, we want that station to run reliably. We want a reliable grid. We want a reliable system. Well, isn't that what reliability standards are all about? So if our focus is and should be when we go to work that we want a reliable system, the reliability standards are a way of getting there. So when the auditor comes in, what is the auditor looking for? Reliability. So now we're having an audit where both of us should be looking for the same thing. We should both be focusing our attentions on reliability. Therefore, if we've done a good job day to day, complying with our standards and doing the things that we need to do to make our plant reliable, should be a good time with the auditor. It's just a matter of show and tell to say, hey, we've been doing all the good stuff and the auditor's happy because at the end of the day, we both want a reliable system.
What does it mean to always be audit ready? Always being audit ready means you keep your internal compliance program in a constant state of readiness. Your documentation, evidence, narratives are kept up to date throughout the year instead of waiting the last minute and updating everything right before an audit. So how do you get there? The first place to start is with a NERC internal assessment to assess the extent in which you currently comply with all the NERC reliability standards and to identify any potential vulnerabilities in compliance. Look at your highest level governing document. Review your processes and procedures to ensure you're following the requirements listed in your governing document. And look at your current evidence, your equipment lists, and preventative maintenance schedules with the resulting test data.
When a client asks us to assess the site before a scheduled NERC audit, we discover some standards were either not met or were partially met. Because this was completed before the audit notification, we were able to help the site find missing evidence to prove the standard requirements were met. Where evidence was not found, we worked with the client to develop self-report for the potential non-compliance. Telling the story in the self-report helps the regional entity understand the site's view of what happened, what steps were taken to make the corrections, and when the requirement was corrected. This shows the regional entity that the site is serious about compliance and takes the proper corrective actions. Self-reporting before the audit notification will keep non-compliances from being found during the audit.
Now, based on your NERC internal assessment findings, you should begin the process of closing the identified gaps. Create a specific scope and schedule to help you stay focused on task. Once you feel your ICP is in a good place, that's a great time to start preparing for an audit. We believe there are 5 key steps when preparing for an audit. Step 1, identify the standards and requirements that may be included. Step 2, understand the different types of evidence. Step 3, develop your audit packages. Step 4 is self-reporting. And finally, step 5, perform a mock audit.
For step 1, you should identify the standards and requirements that might be included in your audit. Again, get a good idea of scope. You should review the NERC ERO areas of focus for the year of your audit. For example, in 2020, you would want to pull the ERO Enterprise Compliance Monitoring and Equipment Program Implementation Plan. The NERC CMEP includes a list of ERO areas of focus, which includes the standards the region will most likely look at, including the requirements. Next, you want to identify your entity's high impact areas of focus. To do this, you want to look at your inherent risk assessment, the IRA. Most entities have one by now and will likely be included by the region in your audit package by the time your next audit comes around. The IRA helps refine the scope of the audit. We suggest looking at those areas that pose the most risk to the bulk electrical system. These standards should be included in the initial assessment. And finally, you need to look at any past compliance issues going back into your last audit, including any self-reports, violations in any past area, and any mitigation plans, and make sure that everything is up to speed on all of those items.
Step 2 includes understanding the different types of evidence your auditors will want to see. The first type would be your policies and procedures. This documentation provides evidence that you have processes in place that prove how you meet the standard. The second type includes evidence that you followed the processes that you have in place. Examples can be screenshots, reports, training records, items that prove you are following the processes and meet the intent of the standard and requirements. An actual example here would be evidence of your investigation into the Operation Protective System for PRC4, as well as the MIDAS submittals misoperation reports if you need to do that. Now, the last type we like to call back pocket evidence. Now, this evidence further solidifies you are in compliance. Maybe you have additional engineering reports or some extra training records. Be cautious, however, to not always give everything away right up front. The goal here is to give the auditors exactly what they asked for and enough that proves you are compliant to help prevent additional data requests. But you still have something in your back pocket to prove your case further should you need it.
Step 3 is the development of your audit packages, and what we mean by that is development of your actual RSAW narratives and pulling your evidence together. So for the list of standards that you developed from your assessment in step 1, you will want to develop the RSAW narrative first. First and foremost, your RSAW narrative needs to explain the processes you used to meet those requirements. Typically, you lean on your procedures for this. If for some reason your procedure doesn't adequately explain the process you used to meet the standard, then explain your process in more detail in the RSAW. The goal here is to explain to the auditor what you do to meet the requirement. Again, building your credibility. You want to guide the auditor through the evidence you are providing in your RSAW package. That said, throughout your narrative, be sure you point your auditor to the piece of evidence you want him or her to look at. Don't just list the evidence and expect them to understand what you are sending. Be very specific and guide them through what you are providing. If you leave it up to them, they may not complete the picture. We also suggest that you describe any tools you use to meet compliance. Internal controls are extremely important, and the auditors love to know what you are doing to use them. Step 3 includes making sure you are prepared for any data requests. Be assured that every audit will include the initial request for your BES assets, your PRC 5 protection system equipment list with maintenance and test records, and your FAC 8 BES facilities and their associated ratings. We highly recommend you get these ready before your audit notification letter because you won't have a lot of time when that letter comes. When you get the letter and the templates, you can simply copy and paste into the regional or NERC templates that come in the notification package. Don't wait until the last minute to get those together because it is a time-consuming process. Also remember that if you have an on-site audit, the auditors are going to want to visit control rooms, substations, generation facilities, and operations centers. So be prepared for that and prepare the personnel for that.
Step 4 includes preparing for any non-compliance findings. We hope you don't find any non-compliances as you prepare, but if you do, we strongly encourage you to report those findings through the self-report process. You need to do this before you receive the audit notification letter, so the findings are not included in your audit. This is very important.
And finally, step 5, which is the last step in the process. We recommend that you conduct a mock audit before your official audit takes place. Mock audit is just like it sounds. It's a pretend audit, a dry run, like you would dry run a presentation. And you want to conduct your mock audit in as realistic a manner as possible. Get someone that can really be a good auditor. This requires a solid team, including those playing the parts of the auditor. Conducting a mock audit where you're very critical of the documentation is a great strategy for staying ready for a real audit. It's a good opportunity to practice and understand where you may have some weaknesses, to go through an RSOL data request phase to help your team understand what type of evidence will need to be produced, and to conduct internal meetings for those who are going to be interviewed, such as your operators who are going to be asked questions during the actual audit. Remember, only answer the questions being asked, be polite, give them the information they ask for, but don't go off into all kinds of things. Keep it focused and refer to the evidence that you provided. And you'll want to prepare your team and set them up for success. Walk them through the questions that they're going to be asked, help them formulate their answers, get them prepared to give the answer that they'll be comfortable with.
We also want to mention some general observations and tips that we've formulated over time. In our opinion, the auditors really aren't there to torment you. They don't want to find areas of non-compliance. They prefer to find evidence that you are in compliance rather than identify findings, and they truly can be helpful within the process. Understand that standards are open to interpretation, so there may be areas of a disagreement along the way, and that's okay. We really want to stress to you that you shouldn't be lazy with your RSOL narratives, as they can really greatly reduce the amount of data requests along the way. The more information you put in, the better off you are. As you know, there are a number of data requests that can come in after the fact. Our motto is more when it comes to RSOL narratives. It is very important that you be consistent in how you organize your evidence across the standards. This really helps the auditors get through your evidence. Have a designated note taker during the audit to ensure all actions are recorded and that they are recorded accurately. And remember, we are all human in this process, so be polite and courteous throughout the entire audit to help the process go smoothly. And please, please, please begin preparing early. Give yourself ample time to identify errors, to build that documentation, and to self-report if you need to. We hope this presentation has helped to provide some insight on how you can always be audit ready. Be sure to comment below if you have questions. Stop by our exhibit page to connect with us or to learn more about how Certrec will empower you to power the world.